Well, hello, folks, and welcome once again to the Joel Saint Show. Nice to be back with you. And we've got a great program for you tonight. And this is going to be a terrific podcast. And we're going to jump right into it. The United States Council of Catholic Bishops met somewhat recently. Now, there's an article in Crisis magazine that I came across that I want to spend some time on. And the Crisis magazine is a Roman Catholic publication. It's online. I believe it's also in print. I'm not so sure about that, but it's definitely online. And that's where we want to go tonight. An article where the a Roman Catholic lady, who's obviously a layperson, is complaining about the United States Council of Catholic Bishops. Now, what you need to know is, once again, this magazine is written for, basically appeals, as I understand from what they have to say about it, to the Roman Catholic laity. So let's definitely jump right into this. Here is the article for you, and she's a really good writer, Cheryl Comer, and she starts out by calling it the United States Coffee Circle of Catholic Bishops, which meets in Baltimore. And apparently this was rather recently. In fact, just less than a month ago, as we're recording this. And she starts out by saying, the Fall General Assembly of the USCCB lumbered into session last week at the Marriott Waterfront in Baltimore, as they do each November. The ponderous live stream of bishops all doing their best to be flavorless was, to say the least, somnolent or whatever. That means apparently like boring and puts you to sleep. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly. Anyway, there were approximately 2 minutes of interest on day 2 when Bishop Strickland stood up to make an intervention. He was widely ignored, after which the porridge of officialdom moved on like a slow-moving river around a midstream boulder. It felt like they all found something of interest in the ceiling. It is finally becoming apparent, she says, even to the most hopeful, that no amount of begging, pleading, or shaming will cause the bishops to care about the laity and those things that are most important to us. Now, here's where I would begin my challenge, if you will. I would certainly hope bishops would be interested in beyond what's interested, would speak to and promote what's beyond what's interesting to the laity, shall we say, and actually be able to expound the scriptures, because there's nothing more important to the laity or the clergy than the all-important Word of God. But she goes on. If they're confused as to what those things are, a good start would be to ask priests what they hear most in confession. Now, this is a great insight. What do people confess in confession when they're confessing to the priest? She says, I guarantee it's not offenses against climate change or synodality. Our children are lost to virtue at an early age and misled by the hypersexualized agenda in their schools. The culture of death and depravity takes more trouble over them, over the bishops apparently, than the church does. Where is the stout teaching of the theology of the body in schools and parishes? Where are the Christian heroes able to credibly witness to purity? And I think what she's talking about here, I don't, is she talking about public school or is she also talking about the Roman Catholic schools? I don't know. In any case, she's talking about the fact that the bishops are not talking about purity. They're not talking about avoiding fornication. Instead, they're talking about other things. And obviously, I mean, I stand outside abortion clinics, and as do many others and many people that are listening to this podcast right now. And you can be sure there's Roman Catholics going in there as well. I'm sure there's Protestants also. But you would think, the love of one's neighbor and the preservation of my neighbor's life in the womb might be important to Roman Catholic bishops. I mean, I was out earlier today. I was out at a protest and witness in Lancaster, and people tell me, "Hey, the Roman Catholics are out here," and I don't know if any of them were out there or not. I didn't meet any, but I will occasionally meet Roman Catholics out at abortion protests. But it seems like Rome is all over the map on this issue. as demonstrated by this article. I mean, again, we're talking about our neighbors' lives here and saving them from murder. And apparently, according to this article, the bishops could not be troubled with that type of topic. She says they're not to be found. Where are the Christian heroes able to credibly witness to purity? Where are the Christian heroes? Where is our teaching? Where are our teachings? She says they're not to be found in the Baltimore Marriott. And wouldn't you think that bishops might be a little bit ashamed? Young adults are turning away from marriage and family. Yeah, this is a crisis. It's an absolute crisis. They're turning away from marriage and family. Contraception, abortion, sterile lifestyles, pornography, and misplaced priorities are seductively proposed to them, guaranteeing they will never have the joy intended by God through the family. Might this, here we go, might this be of some interest to the bishops? She goes on to say, so many people who left the Mass under the reign of fear in 2020 never returned. She's talking about the COVID nonsense, of course. We still have a crisis of catechesis. People don't know things, with adults in the pews who have no idea what their Catholicism teaches. I would have to say, I mean, I've interacted with Roman Catholics pretty much all my life, and most of the Roman Catholics that I knew didn't really take it all that seriously and didn't know what their local parish taught, apparently, or what Roman Catholic doctrine even was. That's been my experience. That's not all of them, for sure. So I don't know if the problem is greater since 2020 or not, but she obviously believes that it is much greater. She says the obsessive persecution of the traditional Latin Mass has driven some of our most committed and hardworking parishioners out of diocesan parishes. I have no way of knowing. I can believe it, though. Tens of thousands of our African brothers have been kidnapped, tortured, and executed for the faith. Could the bishops be troubled to address any of that? And the answer appears to be, apparently, for her, no. I mean, think about it again, right? But remember, my friends, if we don't care about our neighbors in the womb, we will soon not care about them out of the womb either. Tens of thousands of our African brothers have been kidnapped, tortured, and executed for the faith. Who cares? Could the bishops be troubled to address any of that? Apparently not. No. Okay, here's our answer. Excuse me. No. They spend themselves on immigration, climate change, and synodality. They waste their time and our money to address things that have no bearing on the lives of the laity or the health of our beloved church. When the bishops coyly use the term immigrant without specifying legal or illegal, they're not talking about legal, otherwise why obfuscate? According to a Harvard-Harris poll from June of this year, 80% of all Americans are in favor of the deportation of illegal aliens who commit crimes. And let me go on the record here. I'm not in favor of the deportation of illegal aliens who commit crimes. What I am in favor of is the law applying to the sojourner as it applies to the one who is native. Punishment according to God's law. I don't want to deport a criminal back to his home country and more crimes back there. God's law is the only answer here. Anyway, she goes on. As of this fall, about 1.6 million have self-deported, providing with free airfare, a cash bonus, and a chance to apply for legal re-entry. That sounds like I don't know too much about that, but she's got a link here which I haven't seen. But that might not be a bad business to get into, depending on how much money you get. If you're illegal, maybe you self-deport. You get a free plane ride, apparently. Cash bonus, depending on how much it is, might be worth it, and a chance to apply for legal re-entry. Might be worth it. That trip across the border, despite the wall, might be worth it. If it's $50,000, if you do it once a year, I don't know, 100,000. Who knows? Around another 500,000 have been forcibly deported, many of whom are the worst of violent criminals and gang members. Some do not have U.S. criminal records, and the media and bishops will focus on that, but they have long records in their home countries. And she jumps into it here. No multiplication of pious words from the bishops can change the civil laws. The bishops pulling on the illegal side of the tug-of-war rope sends the message to young people that they need not follow laws they don't like. And I think that is a crisis, but my concern is a whole lot less of U.S. law, whatever that is, U.S. Federal Register law, which takes up thousands of pages. No, I'm more concerned about the law of God. And we don't have the option to avoid that particular law. In a March Gallup poll of 16 key issues of concern to Americans, climate change did not make the worry list. That's not surprising. Bishops are talking about it, though. Oh, climate change. Tells me where their money's coming from, or a lot of where there's money is coming from, right? Even Bill Gates has distanced himself from the climate melodrama, and that's something I've noticed as well. But the bishops will keep milking it until the udder shrivels up. Laudato si. I think that, not sure what that means. I did look that up. I forget what that means. Anyway, Laudato si, Latin for something there. Okay, and synodality, please. You couldn't find two people in the whole world who agree on what it is. And I guess one of them, I can't even pronounce it properly, but the bishops are going to help there. She says, I don't know anyone who think the bishops as a body are doing a great job or even a job. There are a few good ones who could actually be a force for Christ in their dioceses if they didn't have to flap around like synchronized fan dancers for the bishops' conference and the Pope. Heaven forbid any apostle of Christ the King fail to blindly follow orders. Now we're getting into it here, aren't we? Blindly follow orders. More about that with another link here. So she says, the coffee circle took a whole lot of money to rent space at the Waterfront Marriott, with no doubt a strong security force because the princes are afraid of their subjects. Good writing there. And wasted 3 days performing on subjects that are of little to no importance to those of us who used to throw our ties into the basket. Now we really are hitting pay dirt, aren't we? Yeah, we're talking about the money now. Yeah. She's saying, I don't do it anymore. Do I sound, she says, disrespectful? I'll reserve my genuine respect for the one man who spoke up for a few of the things that are really troubling the faithful. And she's going to talk about Bishop Strickland. I refer you, she says, to Bishop Strickland's intervention on day 2, which was ignored by the coffee circle, but not by the faithful. Thank you, Bishop Strickland, for knowing and caring about the real world in which we, the laity, live and work and try to raise our families for God. Note the disregard of the other bishops when Strickland exhorts them to take the homosexual revision of the faith seriously. Then see the postscript that Bishop Strickland posted Friday morning, beginning, Dear faithful Catholics. These are some of the most powerful words our lone shepherd has ever spoken. Okay, let's explore these words here. How long will you halt between two masters? If you believe Christ is Lord, then follow him. If the world is your master, then go to it. But no longer profane his sanctuary while you betray the cross. And how are they betraying the cross? Bishop Strickland is going to get specific. Bishops, stop with the games. Stop with the lies. Stop turning a blind eye to the little ones. A massive stockpile of millstones is ready to be distributed among you. Referring to Christ's statement that the ones who offend the little ones, it'd be better for a millstone to be hung around their neck and then to be cast into a lake somewhere. Okay, so we're getting even more specific. One for Pope Leo, a truckload for the Curia in the Vatican, and cargo ships full for the vast majority of today's successors of the apostles. How dare I speak these words? How dare I judge these princes of the church? No, brothers, how dare you inflict harm on the little ones over and over again? And she says, and then he gets fiery. In any case, she ends up here saying that I pray the Lord defends his sheep. Well, and there she is, Cheryl Colmer, a good writer. Okay, a couple things here. One of them is that I seem to notice that the conservative Roman Catholics, they seem to, at least in their public statements, they seem to be backing off of Mary an awful lot. Her final statement here, any Protestant could agree with this. I pray the Lord defends his sheep. In fact, a lot of what she said here, a Protestant could agree with. A lot. I notice Mary sort of fading into the background when it comes to a lot of, shall we say, public consumption, conservative Catholic articles and discussions, etc. There's another thing here, though, too, and that is, I don't know what Cheryl Comer and conservative Catholics can do about it. They can't leave Roman Catholicism because that is the church. For them, there is no heaven. There is no salvation outside of the Roman Catholic Church. So in the end, no matter how bad they get, and Francis was really something else. Now we have Leo. He doesn't seem to be too much different from Francis, at least in the minds of some people. There is just nothing you can do about it. I mean, you can complain all you want to, but there is nothing you can do. Now, I want to address the fact that when I talk to some of my Roman Catholic acquaintances and friends, even, one of the things that constantly comes up is you Protestants, look at all your division. Look at all your denominations. Well, I just introduced you to some serious division here and serious legitimate division. It seems to me that denominations just might be a real good thing here because Roman Catholics, hear me. There is nothing you can do about it. The church can get as corrupt as it possibly can, and all you can say is, well, we know that this is the church, and God will clean it up eventually. Well, what are we going to do in the meantime? The Roman Catholicism is doing great damage in the meantime. I wish they were the only ones. They're not. I believe that high up in the Vatican, there's an awful lot of corruption going on. I also believe that at least in some Protestant denominations, it seems like the bigger they are, I believe there's some serious corruption going on. For example, at the top levels of the Southern Baptist Convention, at a minimum, tremendous lying going on. And we know that in John 8:44, Christ forever connected lying with murder. He said, he talked to the people who are challenging him. You are of your father, the devil, the lusts of your father you will do. And then Christ went on to say he was a liar and a murderer. He connected lies and murders right there. And I don't know where the Southern Baptist Convention is right now, but I know there's an awful lot of lying going on. And I mean, when you elect an outright plagiarizer for the head of the Southern Baptist Convention, as they did a couple of years ago, obviously truth doesn't matter to you too much. So Rome and the Vatican isn't the only one here. The Protestants have this going on too. Shame on them as well. Well, okay. So what we want to do here then is I want to go to another article for you here, and the second article is about Joseph Strickland. Now, again, we just heard from in the Crisis magazine article praising Joseph Strickland. Here we have from the National Catholic Reporter here, we've got, for NCR, we have got an article, Joseph Strickland was my bishop. Here's why he had to go. And I'm not going to read this entire article for you, but I want to go down to a comment this writer makes. She says this. She says, and she talks about how she came to Rome and was happy and had good relationships and so forth in a particular diocese. And then she went to another one, and there's Father Strickland, as they call him. And she says Father Strickland didn't pay enough attention to racism, and she is just kind of uptight about this. All right, let's see if I can find this here. She says, when I attended Mass celebrated by Strickland, I noticed two distinct things about him. One was that he was undoubtedly loved Jesus and was hungry to share the truth of the real presence of the Eucharist. Second, he was openly critical of the Pope and the magisterium. Watching the bishop accuse the Pope of doctrinal error without a lick of proof She's not talking about Leo now. She's talking about the Bergoglio or whatever, Francis. Without a lick of proof, and then pour so much love into the Eucharist, Lord, confuse me. My sense of unity, so nurtured in my journey into the church, was ripped away as my thoughts became flooded with confusion and my mind became divided on who to believe. I was scandalized from then on, filled with anxiety about who was telling the truth and who wasn't. Okay. Sounds like division to me once again. And that's the problem that Strickland had. That's also the problem that Vigano had and has. You know, what if the Pope goes against Roman Catholic teaching? What are you going to do? You have division. You constantly say that our denominations are division. You know, I think the Protestants are a lot more honest here. They have honest divisions that you can identify. What's this woman supposed to do? She's got a bishop saying one thing and a pope saying another thing. I guess we got to make a choice, don't we? Now, here we go. I started praying daily for God to show me the truth, and slowly I started to gain clarity. One of the first such moments for me was seeing Strickland openly and flippantly tell Catholics not to worry about racism. Oh, here we go. See, apparently Bishop Strickland is not towing the left-wing line like he should. Bad bishop. You always got to give some attention to racism, or you're a bad bishop. Okay, so he apparently does this. She says, I was angered to see him casually dismiss the issue without any accountability. Further, to see him talk about how he loved Jesus one moment, then openly support people like Father James Altman the next, who I don't know much. He said the lynches were justified. I don't know about that. But going on here, as time went on, the chasm deepened. He increasingly made unsubstantiated claims, and this is bad here. Unsubstantiated claims against Pope Francis, pitting him against Jesus and accusing him of having a program of undermining the deposit of faith. Now, the deposit of faith in Roman Catholicism is a body of doctrine that I'm not sure if it can ever be changed, or if I'm not sure about it, or if it can be changed under certain conditions. I'm not sure. But they have this deposit of faith that everyone is supposed to adhere to. And all she does is she makes a charge, but she offers no proof for it. He even planted seeds of doubt about the faithfulness of the magisterium in the hearts of the lay faithful, publicly encouraging them in a pastoral letter to reject the ongoing synod on synodality. He also signed a document accusing the Pope of teaching heresy in his 2022 apostolic letter. Well, anybody who followed Francis know that even for Roman Catholics, the man was a definite heretic, according to Roman Catholic teaching. Forget about the Protestants. And I met, it's a funny thing. I'm not sure where all the Roman Catholics are, but the Roman Catholics that I ran into outside of abortion clinics, when Pope Francis came up, to a man and to a woman, they couldn't stand Pope Francis. So in my experience, the ones that are out there working, the ones that are out there getting their hands dirty, they understand what a problem Pope Francis actually was. Yeah, well, she says here at the end, she says, yes, Strickland does speak truth, but we must carefully discern what is truth and what is not. How are you going to do that without a word from God? This is what the Protestants have been saying the whole time. We've been saying the whole time that the Bible judges the church. I think what's happening in Roman Catholicism, what has happened is, no, the church judges the Bible. And if you doubt me on that, it used to be a bigger doctrine. Now, maybe it's not as big anymore, but I've read in the Roman Catholic Catechism, I've read this, that the lay people are not qualified to interpret the Bible. That's why they need the church to get that done. So, the church then judges the scriptures. I don't see how you can possibly get away from that. Again, Strickland does speak truth, but we must carefully discern what is truth and what is not. She says even Martin Luther spoke the truth about the need for reform within the church, But that only goes to show that not every shepherd is worth following. Again, how are you going to know? On what basis are you going to make a judgment between Strickland and the Pope? Well, I believe if you're a true Catholic, if you're a true Roman Catholic, I should say, you have to go with the Pope. Not just on this one, on all of them. Again, he is the vicar of Christ. He is the representative of Jesus Christ, and it doesn't matter what he says or does. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is when he's speaking ex cathedra or ex cathedra, and that matters. But otherwise, he can be whatever he wants to be. He can be a horrific sinner. It doesn't matter. There is no salvation apart from the church. And so that's just the way that has to happen for my Roman Catholic friends. And I would have to argue that the second writer who says that Strickland had to go, I would have to say she's the more consistent Roman Catholic, really. I don't know how you discern between two opinions unless you have a word from God. But I mean, as long as the Roman Catholic Church has a pope, and the pope says what he says, and you have these bishops say, Vigano I don't think Vigano's a bishop. I'm not sure if he is. Bishop was or Bishop Strickland was a bishop, but he got thrown out for divisiveness by Francis, as I understand it. And that's what the second writer says. Bishop Strickland, he just had to go. Can't have him. So you got to make a decision. Whatever are you going to base it on? Let's say even without the scriptures, my Roman Catholic friends, even without the scriptures, you have enough information in your deposit of faith and your catechism to know that Bergoglio, Francis there, went against Roman Catholic teaching. What are you going to do about it? You know what you're going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. Because the Roman Catholic Church can become as corrupt as it possibly can, and you're stuck in there because you believe that the only way to salvation is through that church. I'm grateful for Protestant denominations that adhere to the Word of God. Anyway, so there's one other thing I want to talk to you about today, and that is I'm going to call it kind of like a Christian scam we got going here. This is from the Christian Post, which I think it's mostly, I'm not sure if the Christian Post is more Protestant or Roman Catholic, but I got this. I get emails from them, and so I want to go to this particular email for you here. And in this email here, we've got an investment opportunity for everybody. You ready for this? The Christian Post, your philosophy, your principles, your portfolio. Introducing the Global X S&P 500, which means that it's going to have 500 underlying assets supporting this ETF, exchange traded fund. We've got the ticker symbol here, CHRI. The fund was incepted on September 23rd, 2025, so it's very recent. Has a pretty high expense ratio here of 0.29. But anyway, what this is it's telling us that you don't have to invest in enemies of the faith, basically. I got to tell you, this word faith-based is not one of my favorites. That's a very flexible term. And everybody's faith-based at one point. Even the most rabid evolutionist is faith-based. Yeah, this happened 1 million years ago. Were you there? Did you see it? No, but I know what happened. Out of way, bro. Got the faith. I admire your faith. So faith-based expertise and invest in values. CHRI, that's the ticker symbol, allows investors to buy and sell a broad basket of U.S. equities that conform with Christian guidelines with the tax efficiency of an ETF. So Christian guidelines. Doesn't this sound pretty good? Sounds like something you might be interested in. So let's find out a little bit more about this investment opportunity that will help you understand that you can maintain your Christian values here and still be a good investor. So let's go to it here and let's find out more about our Christian Values ETF. All right, so here we are. Let's go to this page of more information, and let's go to holdings and characteristics. Price and performance, I'm not too interested in that, but what does it hold? What does it invest in? That's what a mutual fund and an ETF are similar in that. There's similarities and there's differences, but they're similar in that they invest in underlying assets. For example, let's say you had an exchange-traded fund or a mutual fund that invested simply in the American automotive industry. Well, they would invest in Ford and GMC and, Chrysler, etc. And some of those are already overlapping. Ford, Chrysler, and so forth. Maybe they might invest in some other, maybe they would invest in some products that are used in cars that are made in America. Who knows? But they would invest in those underlying assets. So you have a variety of underlying assets. You're not just invested in Ford, or you're not just invested in Chevrolet, or you're not just invested in Chrysler, you invested in all three, right? So let's see what this faith-based ETF invests in for us here. So here we go. So let's pull it up here. And first one, 7.76 of its assets are invested in NVIDIA Corporation. Don't know so much about them, but I know a little bit about this next one, 7.17%. Apple. Hint. No friend of Orthodox Christianity. Microsoft. Yeah, that did all they could to limit the discussion of what COVID was actually doing. Microsoft, our friend, 6.23. Amazon, 3.87, invested in Amazon. Now, if you think of friends of Christianity, would Amazon come to mind? It doesn't come to my mind either. Alphabet, that's Google. That's the way Google here, 3.16. And then Google again, Googl, and down here Goog. So together, like close to 6%. Google, they're the ones that definitely limited, shall we say, and canceled discussion extensively about the COVID situation. Broadcom, not as familiar. Meta Platforms, not as familiar. Tesla, okay, whatever. Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah, our buddy Warren Buffett. What does. So we're invested in Berkshire Hathaway. Let's see what Berkshire Hathaway invests in. So what do we have here? Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett's here, his portfolio. Oh, well, his own portfolio. Now, I'm not so sure if this is Berkshire Hathaway or it says Warren Buffett portfolio. Buffett Online. What does he invest in? Well, Apple, we've seen that. American Express, Bank of America, Coca-Cola. Now, again, I'm not sure if Berkshire Hathaway invests in these, but this is what their founder invests in. So let's see, Coca-Cola. How much of a friend of Christianity is Coca-Cola? Well, let's see here. How does Coca-Cola support the LGBTQ? Was that an I? I don't know what the I is. That's just going to get longer. We support many LGBTQI-focused organizations and programs in our communities, from the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund to the Trevor Project. Coca-Cola is proud of its history of supporting and including the LGBTQ blah blah community. All right, how about Bank of America? Bank of America supports the LGBTQ plus. They don't have the I. They got to get on board here. They should probably be canceled. Get on board. The latest is LGBTQI. Come on, get the ladies wearing pants in the human resources department on this right away. you gotta have the latest. LGBTQ plus community, including transgender individuals, through inclusive workplace practices, non-discrimination policies, etc. Specific banking products designed for LGBTQ clients, whatever that is. Bank down here, Bank of America has a long-standing commitment to supporting the LGBTQ plus community. It was one of the first banks to include sexual orientation and gender identity in its non-discrimination policies. All right, so you can invest in, this whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, is quite the scam. This CHRI, this whole invest in this particular portfolio. It sounds like it's all about money to me, and I really don't see that much difference in that and your basic standard 500 index fund, which a lot of investment companies offer. So tonight, actually it's night right now, but wherever you are, it might not be night. But hey, we covered a couple of different topics today. Thanks for being with me so far. And before we let you go, the Lancastrian Theonomy Symposium coming up on March the 14th, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. $5. If you want a box lunch, it's an additional $11 or $12. Terrific fellowship. We have the best fellowship of these things, and terrific teaching. And again, I know you've heard it if you've seen our podcast before, but here it is, March 14th, 2026. Oh, how I love thy law is our theme from Psalm 119, verse 97. Oh, if all the ones that name the name of Christ could say what the psalmist says here, because Jesus Christ loved his law. Again, you've heard this before. Moses, or the book of Deuteronomy, was the most quoted book from the lips of Jesus Christ. Deuteronomy. Sounds like he loved God's law. You and I should as well. Well, again, thanks for being with us. Hope you sign up. I believe we aren't out of space yet, but last I spoke with Chris Hume. I think there are like 40 tickets already sold, and we only have, I think, 150 available. So sign up, and hope you come on out. And again, thanks for your support, and thanks for being with me here. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget, the law of the Lord is perfect.